This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. And now, here's your host, Itamar Shafir.
Welcome to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we interview successful marketing experts about ways to build and grow your agency. Our guest today is a very successful entrepreneur and an email marketing maven. He is the founder and CEO of AWeber, one of the leading email marketing and automation platforms for small businesses. He grew his company organically to over 300,000 active clients. I really want to ask him about how he did that, which also makes him a super growth hacker. I'm excited to say hello to Mr. Tom Kulzer. Hi, Tom.
Hey, thanks for having me today, Itamar.
It's my pleasure, and I've been looking forward to it. You built quite an amazing company, and you have such a vast knowledge as a marketer. I have a ton of questions for you, and I'm sure the listeners are looking forward for us talking about email marketing in depth. But before we get into that, maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you got into starting AWeber, which was pretty young age, right? We were 21 or something like that.
Yep, pretty much. I was a mechanical engineer at school, decided I didn't like that, switched to finance. And then I dropped out to start a software company. So, highly educated in all of those different things. And, I tell our team that I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, and I'm really good at connecting all the different pieces together and really diving in and looking where we can continually iterate and improve. But so back in '98, I was selling wireless modems back before we all had, iPhones in our pockets with high-speed internet. And I had developed, I'd go to computer shows and those things, I don't know if any of our audience is geeky enough to have gone to computer shows back in the day. But I would go and I'd stand there at the table and I'd get leads and people would ask me questions and so forth. And after the show, I needed to follow up with them. How do you follow up with people? Well, even then you emailed them and you call them too, but like mostly email. And, being in college at the time, I figured, hey, how can I optimize this process and make it more efficient? So I'm not spending my physical human time sending the same repetitive message to people that I just talked to. And I wrote a little Perl script. I wrote a little software program to automate that. And in the process of my college moving around and so forth, I ended up leaving and I stopped doing that wireless modem thing. And other people that I had shared that same software with, I had stopped running it, and they came to me and said, "Hey, I'll pay you money for that."
Nice.
And I was just doing it for free at the time because they were basically reps in different parts of the country, and I was collecting knowledge from them on what worked and what didn't. So I had kind of like a mastermind group around sales techniques for this product, and it worked really well. And so when they came to me and said, "Hey, I'll pay for that," I kind of scratched my head and went, that sounds better than busting tables at Olive Garden. And so that was kind of the first generation of AWeber was literally a sequence of 7 email messages. They were all plain text. You came in and you copy pasted them in. And, you had a basic form on your site that people could sign up and ask for more information from. And it's evolved over the past 23 years from there to be a complete, marketing automation suite that does your email hosting and marketing automation. So like, people open things and click things, you send other emails, tagging and so forth, but also like website hosting and web push notifications. It's like the whole marketing suite around how you do business online for for the most part. And we've grown it from there. So
amazing. And today you're 300,000. But before you got into that, you got started, right? You got those few clients initially, and then you started growing it. And from what I understand, you mainly did it organically, right?
Yeah, we're 100% bootstrapped even to today.
So what were your first moves? Like, how did you get to tell people, hey, I have this, you should get it? Especially when I think back then it was also market education. It wasn't like, oh yeah, marketing automation, we get it, we need to do it.
My first customers were really the ones that were like actually literally almost banging on my door saying, "Hey, I'll pay for this." And I think that it kind of goes to the core of all marketing, is sell something that solves a problem for people. And in that process, your offer almost becomes, like I could have named my own price. I remember vividly one conversation. So our pricing started out with, it was originally $20 a month for the 7 messages and unlimited subscribers. Really thought that big yet. We changed that later. But I remember vividly talking with the owner of a car dealership early on, where he's like, he's scratching his head, like $20 a month per subscriber. And I kind of did one of those, like, wait a minute, per subscriber? No. That's for all of your subscribers. He's like, well, sign me up then, because I thought it was per subscriber, and I had to think a little bit about that. But you almost had me even at $20 a subscriber, because like the average lead for them was worth so much more.
Wow.
So it was really, about solving that initial problem. And from there, it was solving those users' problems. We turned on an advocate affiliate, kind of a reseller program. So those users that were huge fans of the service and it had benefited them so much, many worked in, marketing agencies and others, where they were going out and helping other businesses, where it became a natural sell for them to just add it on to their own services that they were selling, and to resell our service as well and earn a commission for that. Long Amazing. After like the contract ends for like whatever service they're doing, they continue to run their email newsletter and their marketing automation stuff, and they continue to get paid, 30% every month for what they're doing from having told them about us. So
yeah, so a big growth for your company was using that reseller network.
Absolutely.
Essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so jumping into today, we hear about marketing automation a lot. Some of the listeners probably know more about it, some less. Maybe we can look at that term for a second, email marketing automation, and say, email is pretty ubiquitous tool. A lot of people use it all day long. We use it for Gmail, and we understand that you can set a drip campaign, right? An email after an email. Yep. But take us maybe deeper into how marketing automation can solve problems for clients, or for the listeners today on, for example, lead gen funnels, because many of them probably work with service providers, or
sure,
any use case you think is best.
So I often use the analogy or the use case scenario of a pet adoption, so like an animal shelter. And, if you're looking to adopt a pet, you might sign up for their list to see, what pets they have available. Do they have dogs? Do they have cats? Do they have rabbits? Like what has shown up at their door recently, and what's out there? And marketing automation, and the way that I describe it is, okay, I send out that email as a new subscriber. I don't know what you're into. So over time, when you only click on the dogs, I can tag you as like a dog subscriber. Or if I only click on the cats, the system can learn that I click on all the cats all the time, and that's what I'm interested in. So then from a marketing automation standpoint, that interest category gets tagged automatically. And then further messages that get sent out by the animal shelter, they can make their message. So they send one email. Let's say they send one email every week of what new pets they have available, and they just do what we call conditional content. So they can say, any subscriber that is subscribed and has the cat tag, show this cat section to them, and any subscriber that has the dog tag, show this dog section to them. Nice. So then when it shows up in my inbox, I only see the cats and you only see the dogs. But the animal shelter sent out one email to two very different segments, and it streamlined their production process. It also didn't fill my inbox with a whole bunch of dogs that I don't care about, and a whole bunch of cats that you don't care about. And that's really marketing automation in its like most simplistic forms. But I often find that analogy helps people kind of really grok like the the power of what you're doing and the ability to make your message that much more relevant to each of your recipients. And that's ultimately what you need to do in order to have successful email campaigns, is make sure that it's really relevant what you're sending out. And the more often that you send content that's irrelevant, what are they going to do? They're going to delete it. They might file it away and not look at it, or get overwhelmed by what you sent there because there's just so much in there. There's 50 cats, and you don't care about them. You only care about the one dog that's all the way at the bottom of the email. Well, you never got that far.
Completely. I think a lot of our listeners also do Facebook advertising, and when I hear you talk about it, I kind of hear the Facebook advertising algorithm kind of crunched into your email platform, in a sense that Facebook kind of shows us what it learns that we like, so it avoids things that we we'll skim through, because it wants the platform to be relevant. And you're saying we can harness that power inside the marketing automation tool. And how much is that manual work that I need to define or tag, and how much is this happening kind of on autopilot, that automation part? How expert do I need to be to get started with this? I would say it's it's not the Facebook algorithm, in that we're not going to make the decision automatically on what to send or not send to people. We still we still believe that you as the sender are the best one at kind of distinguishing where the difference is in what the segments are that you want to send your messages to, and which content is going to be most applicable to those particular audiences. But the actual tagging of the subscribers, that's all automated. So all I need to say is these are the dog posts. When people click on these, tag them as dog interests. When they click on the cat ones, tag them as cat interests. And from there you can kind of, so it's really, in marketer agency speak, it's about setting up your funnel of, when you come in, the funnel's really big, and I need to gradually narrow down to what you're most interested in to get you to the point where, you're potentially making a sale. I think that's also another area that a lot of marketers kind of forget, is they use email exclusively as a sales tool. And it's really so much more than that. Some of the most powerful, most valuable ways that email can be used is around post-sale consumption and training of how to, use whatever widget that you just happen to buy, how to, how to be onboarded into a new software platform and get up and running the most effectively. It's at that point, it's not about the sale. It's about getting the value from the thing that I've already spent money on. And that takes some time for people to do. And that's where, drip email campaigns can be so powerful, because it's not just I'm not just hunking a big manual on your desk. I'm kind of dripping it to you when it's most relevant based on the actions that you're taking at that time. Completely. So let's take marketing automation to actually helping small marketing agencies. So small marketing agencies are doing lead gen, let's say, for example, on Facebook, looking for, doesn't matter which niche, that are interested in building websites. Now, they're not always around. Many times they're not around because they're working or talking with somebody. And I think email marketing is critical at that point. So let's say a Facebook lead comes in. Now, what do you think the must that they need to do in terms of automation on top of that lead, to the musts?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, if you're not in some way trying to kind of de-anonymize your visitors by basically capturing their information in some way. So, having some sort of an email form on your website to sign it, your site is a perfect example of that. Front and center, you've got a sign up form. I would say, the biggest tweak there is making sure that you're providing value by the sign up. Make an offer of some sort. You'll hear that called the squeeze page, or the, your landing page that has some sort of what am I getting by signing up? What problem are you going to solve for me? And a lot of that becomes kind of contextual to whatever it is that you're advertising on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, Google ads that you're putting it there. If you serve a particular niche, like let's say you work exclusively with automobile agencies, automobile dealerships, like what are the common mistakes that you see your people in that category making? In what way can you kind of entice them with some of your learnings off the bat that can capture their information so that you then have them to be able to follow up with, to be able to send newsletters to be able to kind of dive in further and figure out what their interests and not even what their interests are, but what their problems are, because that's ultimately what they came there to solve some sort of a problem. Most of us don't cruise around marketing agency websites just for the heck of it. I have a problem, I'm looking for a solution. So you have to provide some sort of a solution there. When you're doing the bare bones component of email, when you're asking for someone's opt-in, tell them what they're going to get and how often they're going to get it. Those are the two key elements to setting your subscribers up and your email program up for success in the long run, because no one wants to sign up with the expectation, whether it's written or unwritten, particularly the unwritten one, where you think you might get a monthly email from them, but all of a sudden I start getting 3 emails a day. I've had this conversation hundreds of times at this point in my career with businesses where they're like, I can't understand why my users are complaining that my messages are spam. They all signed up for them. I'm like, yeah, but like you gave them a PDF download to solve some problem. And the only expectation was that they were getting a PDF download to solve some problem. And now you're emailing them literally every day, even on the weekends. Like, no one's going to be happy with that unless there's that expectation of that. Whereas we have other clients in the finance industry where they're covering and doing commentary on the stock market. They send multiple emails a day, and people, like, if they don't get them like clockwork, they freak out. They're in their inbox going, hey, where's my message? I'm expecting my commentary. The closing bell happens in a half an hour. I need to get that email. So it's all about relevance and context there, and setting that up. I think where you have the opportunity, it's a little different in like agencies, but I think one of the most overlooked sales pages on a website is your thank you page after someone opts in. Most websites that you go to, you'll type in your email address, and I sign up for everybody's everything just because my business. And often what you'll get is a page without a header, there's no footer, and it just says thanks for subscribing. And there's no link to do anything else. And it's like, you just made this like dead end. And yet we're all talking about these marketing funnels. And it's like, well, what kind of funnel is that? Like, you just put up a big stop sign that basically tells me, go away. I'm done with you. And for our clients, particularly
hold on. I need to write that note for myself. I'm embarrassed. Check forms.
So check the forms. I haven't looked at yours yet, but I will check that out. But one of the secrets, particularly for like e-commerce websites, or folks that have like information products and those sort of things, sell something on that page. Yeah. Because what do people guard with their life these days? Your credit card and your email address. And if you've convinced me that you have value enough that you got my email address out of me, I'm probably not far away from pulling out my credit card to solve whatever problem it is that I came to your website for.
Right.
So if that thank you page has the solution and I might need to pay for it, you're very likely to have a highly converting page there. And in my experience, that page can often result in 10 to 20% more revenue for users that implement some sort of a sale on that page. It can be just about anything. It really depends on your audience specifically, but like it's such a valuable estate that people forget about, and they just look at it as like this transactional thing that it's like, they got signed up, I'm good, and they forget that there's a next step and that tab sits in your browser without something to do in it, and it's going to get closed. And until you get that email in your inbox again, I may not go back there,
That's an excellent point. And I think also you raise a distinction. I think many people, when we do marketing, for example, most of our marketing goes to squeeze pages, goes to landing pages. And then we obviously treat the thank you page and the O2Os and everything else that goes into the continuation of the funnel. But on the website, which gets ample traffic as well, I have to say that I'm not sure what happens after somebody contacts Umbrella. I need to check, and I guarantee you that's going to change. So I really appreciate that, and I think many people forget about that. And even for agencies, for e-commerce, it's obvious, but even for agencies, I agree with you. Okay, so you're not selling anything on the TY page, but it's amazing real estate for indoctrination, for giving them a download, for making them like you better before the call. It's a great point. So, okay, now let's.
I filled out your form. It just goes to your contact page.
You should have said that to everybody. There was still the benefit of the doubt.
Well, now you can go to AWeber and you can point out things that we screw up on there, because I find them all the time. But this is how we improve. It's all that iteration,
I agree. So that's inbound, right? And then you capture the lead somehow, and then you, with some automation, follow up, maybe schedule an appointment, depending on your selling, your scheduling, service providers, whatever you do. Mm-hmm. What do you think about cold emailing? Obviously, according to CAN-SPAM regulations, but what are your thoughts about that as a marketing tactic?
As an email guy, I am not a huge fan of it. It depends on how you're doing it. If because cold email to me is the new term for spamming, and particularly when people are trying to do it in some sort of big bulk or automated fashion. So like, if you think you're going to use a tool like AWeber to do cold email, you're going to get kicked off our platform for doing it, because we recognize that sort of thing instantaneously, and it is spam at the end of the day. If you have a list of email addresses and you're just randomly sending them emails, no matter how targeted you think they are, that's spam, and that's not allowed. Where I think that cold email is beneficial and useful is where it genuinely is a one-to-one relationship, and where you spend some time investigating them and feel like there's actually a problem to be solved there. So like, part of the reason that I sign up for a lot of newsletters is I don't cold email. I reply to the emails they sent me.
Nice.
Pointing out where they can improve their own email programs. And it's usually not even so much as a like, hey, you should switch to AWeber to solve that problem. It's just a, hey, you've got a problem here. This is how you could do it better. I'm quasi familiar with the platform that you're using. This is probably how you should do it over there. We also do something like this as well at AWeber. We'd love to help you here as well. That works so amazingly well because it's relevant, and it shows that I actually spent some time receiving their emails, and I noticed an issue and I pointed it out. So it's, is that cold email? Yeah, I've never emailed them before, but they emailed me first.
No, that's an awesome
also
tactic.
And it's also very relevant to what they're doing. So it's, so using the like car dealership, kind of thing. If you're an agency that specializes in that, in what way can you point out something that they're doing on their website that they could be doing better? And it's very contextually relevant. And it might be part of what your paid package is that you would give them, advice on later. But think of it as kind of like your hook to get somebody in the door and to, build that relationship off on a good front. So I get an insane amount of cold email in my inbox every day. I mark them all as spam. I'm ruthless with that. Unless you actually spent time on my website and know who I am and didn't CC 4 other people with random email addresses that I know are blatantly wrong, where like you've clearly not spent any time, like, I mark you as spam. So, because it's the same stuff over and over and over again from different people, and it's just not cool. So you really have to do something different to stand out. You can't do the same thing everybody else does and expect that you're going to get different results.
The newsletter tactic is awesome. I think just as a marketing tactic, what you just described, even if you're not talking just about emails, but it's a way to say, hey, I read your stuff.
Yeah,
I went, I'm interested in replying to that and doing it as a one-on-one. I think it has a lot of benefit. Even if you're not doing email marketing, you can respond to the website, to other marketing situation, maybe to the copy in the email, could be a lot of things.
Because what business isn't going to open a reply to an email that they already sent? You know what I mean? So,
okay. So another question that I'm sure everybody there doing email marketing right now, whether they're sending a lot or a few, are trying to get their inboxing better, right? They're trying to maximize the amount of people that are actually going to see their email. And maybe you can tell the listeners a little bit about how come some emails inbox, some emails list, it's the same list. Obviously the subject has something to do with it, but what and why do sometimes there are like a down spells that less people open your email and then it kind of spikes up again? What's that mojo, black magic that goes on there?
It really depends on who your audience, who your audience is on your subscriber list. For most businesses and consumer lists, there's a significant quantity of Gmail addresses. There's a lot of Yahoo. There's a lot of Hotmail, and that makes up well over 50% of most people's subscriber lists. And there's a lot of, machine learning algorithms behind the scenes to determine what gets to your inbox, what goes to the promotion tab, and what goes to the spam folder. Much in the same way as marketers, we recognize if I go to Google and I type in email marketing and you go to Google and type in email marketing, we're going to see two entirely different result sets. It's the same sort of behind the scenes action that makes the email go to my inbox and the same email go to your spam folder, because what is relevant to me is different than what is relevant to you. And they make that determination most frequently based on what you're engaging with. So when I say engaging, it means what are you opening in your inbox? What are you scrolling through and reading? What are you clicking on the links in there? What are you replying to? What are you forwarding on to somebody else? What are you deleting? What are you saving to a folder on your email program and coming back to later? What emails do you go back to later? We've all got the emails that leave in our inbox that we've read them like literally 400 times, but still haven't replied to because it's on our to-do list and we'll get there someday. We can admit it. I have them. I'm certainly not inbox zero. But it's all of those engagements with the emails that, a mailbox provider like Google and like Yahoo and like Hotmail, Microsoft can do, where they learn what you're interested in and what you're not interested in. If the last 10 times you sent me that email, it sat in my inbox for 2 minutes and I hit delete, well, maybe that's a sign that I don't want your future emails in my inbox.
Yeah.
Maybe when you send your email and your from address is no reply at bigcompany.com or whatever your business name happens to be, and no one ever replies to it, maybe your email should go to the promotions folder because it's always promotions. Like that's the one thing that always boggles my mind. People are like, all my emails go to the promotion folder. All you do is send coupons and sales things. Like they are promotions. They belong in that folder. The things that belong in your inbox are the one-to-one stuff. So like when somebody's encouraging, and it's not the act of having a no reply at whatever email address. It's the fact that you're actively discouraging people from replying and engaging with you. And that lack of engagement is part of what feeds the algorithm to determine your promotion, or you're an email from a human that I'm more likely to actually engage with and want, and therefore should be in the inbox.
And okay, so obviously you need to be relevant, and you need to be. You're saying you need to try to think about it like a human-to-human communication with your client, where you're not just promoting and trying to get sales from them, but also sending relevant content, things that they would click on, things that they would read. How much? What tips can you give listeners about subject lines to get more opens?
This podcast is brought to you by Umbrella. Have an agency? Check out umbrellaus.com to grow it today.
Meet their expectations. I often hear all kinds of crazy subject line tricks. Like we've all heard the one about like putting the little RE at the beginning of the subject line. Do you like that when people do that to you? No one likes that. It's not funny. No one thinks it's cute. You're not tricking anyone. You're just pissing your audience off. Don't do those sort of things. So it's really about treating the people at the other end of the email. When you hit send, you're not communicating with 100 people or 1,000 people. You're communicating with one person at the other end of the line. They might be laying in bed. They might be sitting on their couch. They might be on a train somewhere or in an airplane somewhere, but it's one person. I don't read my inbox with 100 of my closest friends. So it's important to remember to speak to that one person and solve their problems, and don't try to trick them, because you might get a little better open rates a couple of times, but you're going to burn people off, and you're going to burn them out, and you're going to cause them to not trust you. And ultimately that doesn't bode well for your long-term engagement. And that's really the long-term engagement and your overall subscriber engagement. So like when you send, let's say you have 1,000 subscribers on your list. When you send out an email and most of them don't do anything with that, over time, Google learns, Google doesn't just see your inbox. They see all 500, the other 50% of your list that's going to Gmail users as well. And They aggregate that, and they know that when you send to this audience that doesn't engage with your stuff, even though I might engage with your stuff all the time, because those 500 other people don't, eventually they're going to start sticking the email that I got in my inbox into the spam folder, because the overwhelming majority consensus is people don't like what you're sending. So why should they continue to put it in your inbox? So that gets into, where over time you want to look at your subscriber list and purge people that haven't been engaging with what you're sending. If they're not clicking on stuff, then, after a year or so, if they've not done anything detectable as far as engaging in what you're sending, they're probably already gone. And if you continue to hang on to them and keep emailing them, over time, that disinterest will result in the people that are interested not getting your emails anymore. So I think that a lot of times we get wrapped up, particularly as agency owners, business owners, we get wrapped up in that number of like, that's our audience. And like, I can't get rid of them. They've all expressed interest in what I'm doing. And it's like, when they had that problem a year and a half ago, they might have solved it already without you, and they don't need what you're doing anymore. And if you keep emailing them, it's going to hurt your ability to communicate with the people that do need to solve problems that you can solve.
So would you say it's best practice to email last 6 months openers?
I wouldn't necessarily do it exclusively on opens, and I would go for a longer period than just 6 months. I would say like a year or so. But the clicking is the most obvious action these days with all of the things. Like, we're recording this now right after iOS 15 came out, and there's some privacy protections in there with image proxying and so forth that affects the ability to detect a human opening an email versus the image proxy opening an email. So open rates are going to be different going forward in many cases, because so much of the world uses Apple products to read their emails. So you can't exclusively use an open as a sign of engagement. So you also want to look at clicks and so forth. And you can do that with a platform like AWeber or any other, competent email platform. But you want to look at more than just opens. And I would look at it over a slightly longer period of time than just 6 months. 12 months is what I usually look at.
So 12 months clickers? Isn't that too aggressive? Just the clickers?
Not necessarily. When was the last, it really depends on your business, obviously. But like, if you haven't clicked on anything in 12 months, like, are you really sending stuff that's that engaging and that you're really solving problems with people? So it's really, when was the last time you didn't click on anything for 12 months and then somehow miraculously bought something or went back to that company again? And
one company that always gets me, always, every few years, the monthly fool. I don't know why. I don't know why. Like,
we've all been there.
If you're like, but I bought a subscription already like 4 times and never used it. Why is this happening to me again? Like, maybe this time.
I would venture to guess you're probably clicking they're really good at copywriting. I'd venture you're probably clicking things more than once a year. You may only buy something from them once every couple of years, I'd be willing to bet you're clicking on something more often than you think.
Could be. I thought I was strong. I'm like, no, but
That's a great example. I love that.
So you were talking about iOS, and I think it's a good segue to talk about email analytics, because for most people, I think 99% of people, opens and clicks. And okay, so we got this CTR to opens, we got this conversion to opens, we got this conversion to clicks. We're good or we bad? Any other parameters people should note when looking at their analytics?
Yeah, I think it's helpful to also track actual sales if you can. Like if you're in an e-commerce business where you can track an actual conversion on your site, it's good to track those as well and tie those back to the emails you're doing, whether you're using Google Analytics and the UTM parameters that come along with that in the links that you're sending from your emails, so or using, like in AWeber, we have a built-in tool so that you can track and detect, somebody bought this shirt or this information product or whatever, and they spent this amount of dollars, and we can pipe that information directly back into AWeber. So that way you can develop an actual customer list directly within your accounts there. So how much revenue your emails are actually generating for you directly. There's always that indirect aspect of the people that sign up and then hear from you and then eventually land on your contact page and you reach out and they buy your services that way. So that's the more intangible stuff. That's why the how'd you hear about us on forums is always really helpful. But I think that the revenue component is one that's often missed from an email perspective. And I wouldn't get super caught up in open rates as they compare across, even across like different businesses. So like you might know another business owner that is in some other segment. They might have very different audience that gets very different engagement. So we see vastly different open rate and click-through rates from subscribers that are on like Gmail versus Microsoft Hotmail versus Yahoo versus AOL and Comcast and so forth. They all have very different customer makeups that get very different open rates. So depending on your concentrations of different types of subscribers, your metrics can be very different than somebody else. Where I think it is helpful to compare is it's helpful to compare the email I sent this week compared to the one I sent last week or maybe last month. And even trying to compare an open rate from this week compared to what you sent last year is not super relevant. It might provide a little bit of guidance, but I wouldn't get too hung up on it because the technology that we're all reading our emails with, the email programs and so forth, they change those metrics so much depending on whether or not they, load images by default, whether or not they do things like the iOS 15 does, where it's preloading images, where you're going to see your open rates are actually going to increase with the iOS 15 out there. It doesn't necessarily mean more people are reading your emails.
Right.
It just means that you're able to detect more email reading your emails. And that's two very different things. The percentage, the one metric that's always kind of fascinated me is the percentage of clicks that I detect from people that I didn't originally detect an open from. Your mind, you got to think about that one a little bit.
Clicks that I got without people opening the email?
Well, without you detecting that they opened an email. So the only way that you're able to detect, and some of this is like the semantics of how email works and how these metrics work and are gathered. So email, oftentimes when you open it, does not render the images, meaning it does not display the images by default. And you got to click the little like, hey, I want to see the images button. I, as an email marketer, as an email platform, we are not able to detect that you open the email until you see the images, because what it's doing is it's loading a little image on our server that says Itamar, rendered the images and sees the images. Now he opened the email. We know he opened the email, because otherwise, when you're just looking at the email without the images in your inbox, there's no way for us to know that you actually did that, because it's a completely segmented experience. There's no traffic back to our site that we can detect. So
Right.
that's how opens work at the core of them. So I read much of my own personal email without ever turning the images on. I only turn the images on when I think that there's a graph or something that is interesting. And that's why, using alt tags on your images so that the little words show up and tell me what the image is, like that's part of why that is, valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're detecting when you're detecting somebody that has clicked without first opening is you're detecting all those engagements from people that have images turned off. And what's fascinating to me is you can do the math on the percentage of users where you're seeing that engagement versus the percentage of users where you're seeing clicks and opens at the same time. And you can approximate basically an overall like artificial kind of open rate to get a better idea of what your real open rate actually is and what your, kind of what your read rate is.
Yeah.
That kind of steps a little bit beyond the technology. It's obviously an approximation, but it's, as an email marketer, like that's where the math gets really interesting and fascinating to me, because there's so much more of an audience that's often reading most of our emails that just isn't turning the images on because you just can't detect and open if the images aren't on. And a lot of folks that, are even in the business don't understand that's how it works. So it's often kind of a light bulb moment for a lot of people, which is part of why I think clicks are really important, why I think it's really great to encourage people to reply to your emails, engage with what it is that you're sending, ask questions of your audience. The best way to come up with content for what to write next, it's just to ask, what do you have questions about? What can I go into more detail on?
Right.
You get a whole inbox full of people asking great questions on things that you can write about, and you'll often get more ideas than you'll ever have time to actually write about.
Excellent points. I completely agree. And I think that all the ways that you're trying to engage with users, a lot of people need to step beyond newsletters. Like a few points that you mentioned, the surveys, a way to entice them. I think many people are doing the same thing again and again. Again, I'm not saying newsletters are not beneficial. I think they're very beneficial to disseminating some information, but
Absolutely.
People have, a shorter time spent. They have less time altogether, even though they're spending more hours on screen, which is weird. But come up with more sophisticated, more intelligent, more relevant content pieces, which can also be an app, a survey, games, sometimes a video, different things. I think that's an excellent point. How do you think email marketing is going to look like in 5 to 10 years? Pretty much the same, or should we expect some major changes?
It's really hard to say because so much of it is dependent on the mailbox providers and how they iterate the experience for the users that are on their platform. Obviously, Google has a huge impact on how email works around the world, and user interface changes and so forth that they have can be pretty dramatic. One technology that a lot of people haven't heard about yet is, you may have heard about AMP for website displays, but there's also something called AMP for email. And basically what that does, it's something that we support in the AWeber platform. But what it does is it actually turns an email into essentially a web page, in that it can load dynamic content. So so you can send content that's relevant at the time I send it in a traditional email. Like I can send you the dog emails and me the cat emails. But what you can now do with AMP is you could actually embed something. So like we have a proof of concept that we've worked on with a bunch of Etsy sellers, where we can actually embed their shopping carts directly in an email. You can actually buy things directly in the email. You can punch in your credit card in the email and check out completely in your email. It'll give you an order number and all that. It can update. It's just like being on a web page, but it's in your email. And it's like, when you start
calling like a JS file, what is it doing?
It's calling a backend, to call like, an API endpoint that calls their shopping cart endpoints. In the case of Etsy, it's all an open platform to be able to pull in their shopping carts, and you can actually have like a category selector in there where you can say, hey, I want to look at the men's clothing or women's clothing or children's clothing, and you can change it, and then the email will refresh with the different content that's in it.
Wow.
And it's all inside of that email. We do. I've seen it used a lot for like stock market type stuff. So you have on our Motley Fool example, rather than having a stock price that's relevant when I send the email, I can continue to update that so that whenever you load the email I think it stays live for about 30 days after you send it, it'll give you whatever the current stock price is there.
That's sweet.
We also see it for like showing inventory levels. So you can do like a real-time ticker of like a lot of people put in kind of the fake countdown tickers or the fake inventory things. You can put actual ones in now. Whether that's good or bad, it just depends on whether or not your limitation is real or not. Yeah, you got endless inventory, but we don't often tell people that. But like you can put those real kind of elements in there. You can embed surveys directly in your emails as well and get feedback.
What about videos?
Videos are a little different, but yeah, you can embed. Depending on what it is. So like you can embed like a YouTube video in Gmail recipients in those emails in ways that it'll display within Gmail. The best thing to do, like in AWeber, what we do is when you paste in a YouTube link or a Vimeo link, we actually make a screenshot of the video and put a little play button on it. Which helps get people to engage with it. It's better than just having a picture up there. And so that's another way to get in there. So, you are still limited by what the different email clients support, and not all email clients support this AMP for email stuff, but like Gmail supports it. That's often more than half, 50% of many email senders' subscriber base. So depending on what your business is, it can be really, really beneficial. So think like, I've used a car dealership example. Think being able to schedule your next appointment directly in the email. Cool. And for those people where it's not supported in their email client, it falls back to a traditional looking static email where they could click off and go to a website to do that same action.
That's amazing. I'm going to check it out.
But yeah, AMP for email, AMP.
And you got it on AWeber, right?
Yep, absolutely. Look for AMP for email on AWeber. You'll come up with it. We have a bunch of blog posts about it and knowledge-based articles about how to do it and so forth.
So we have one last section. I know we're almost on the hour, and I can go on and ask you 5,000 more questions. I actually have like 10 more questions already written down and a few in my head. But we're on the hour. So I'm going to move into the rapid Q&A section. Rapid Q&A section, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions you need to answer fast. The questions are in no way edgy, but if you feel uncomfortable by any of them, just say pass.
Okay.
Okay. So did you get along with your parents growing up?
Yes.
Do you have siblings?
Yes.
Do you have a pet?
Yes.
Do you have kids?
Oh, excuse me. Well, no, I don't have a pet. Sorry, that was my kid speaking, wishful thinking. Are you trying to figure out my two-factor questions to get into websites?
That's good. Do you have kids?
Yes, two.
Are you sure? No.
Yes, I'm definitely sure.
How old were you when your first kid was born?
How old was I? Would it be 34-ish?
When do you wake up?
7 o'clock.
When do you go to bed?
Well, that's a big angle. Between 11:30 and 5 a.m. I'm a night owl.
Ideal vacation?
Making turns, snowboarding, sailing, anything making turns.
Are you a man of faith?
No.
Excellent, Tom. I want to thank you very much for being on the show. And guys, go to AWeber. They have a free account option. So if you're thinking about checking out their platform, you can check it out for free if you're already doing email marketing. If you're not doing email marketing yet, go ahead and start doing it. They have 300,000 clients. So that's a very good testimony to the fact that they have a great platform. They've been around for a long time. It is a great platform. So go ahead and check it out. And again, Tom, you helped the listeners today, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Your host has been Inamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com.